Hey everyone, this is Dr. Heather Austin Robillard, and this lecture video is just to tell you a little bit about how to do the prevention project one, which is over assessment needs in your community. So first, let's take a look at the rubric for this paper. So this is research intensive, so you're going to want to search for your community as much data as you can to be able to write this paper. So you need to make sure you've picked a specific community because it's really hard. So community is different than population. So a community is like a city, whereas a population is going to be LGBTQ or Hispanic. So you want to make sure you've picked a community, and you're more than welcome to pick a population as well. But the first thing needs to be picked is the community. So let's say we're picking Lubbock as our community. Then we want to come down and we want to find our population needs. This is going to be data on the levels of the substance use or whatever related problem you're picking. You can pick something that's not a substance, so maybe you're going to pick eating disorders, or maybe you're going to pick promiscuous sex, teen pregnancy, something like that that might be leading to substance use. So then you'll also want to find data on the risk and protective factors in your community. And I'll show you later on in this lecture on how to try to locate some of that information. If you're working with a small community that may not have big data on it, then you're just going to want to pick something, find information that you can that will show those risk factors and protective factors, like the ones that were discussed in your lecture video and your reading. You're also going to want to identify available resources to support your prevention efforts. So maybe there's some churches that are looking for this, maybe there's some other prevention programs, maybe there's some programs in the schools, something that will also support the prevention efforts you're wanting to do in the program. Remember, we're not wanting to recreate a prevention program. We're wanting to find a gap within your community that we can provide a prevention program for. So another part is community readiness. We want to identify what level of community readiness your community is in. Also in this module is the 7 steps to building a successful prevention program, and it talks about how to increase your readiness for your community, and it gives you the different stages that your community can be in. So read over this and see which stage you feel like your community is in, and then talk about what are the strategies you're going to use to try to get your community ready for the specific prevention program that you're going to be talking about in prevention or in the prevention project 2. I already talked about what data you're going to need to find. Now I want to show you how we can find this information. And it's going to be a little different. Because I live in Texas, I linked most of the links for Texas. However, I will show you a link from another community and how you can research that as well. Okay, so the first link is for the Prevention Resources Center. This is on the Department of Texas Health and Human Services, and each region of Texas is separated, and they do their own assessment needs. So you can click on here to kind of see which county you're wanting to look in, and then you're going to find the assessment needs for that region. Okay, so for example, let's say I'm using Region 1. I'll go to the Prevention Resource Center for Region 1, and you can select data and reports. Then it'll give you a bunch of data that you can look through. You feel free to look through these if these lend better to the topic that you're using, but you can also go to the General Regional Needs Assessment, and it gives you an entire PDF. What's great about this is it already lists out some of those risk factors and protective factors for you. So they've already pulled the data in your community, and you can cite this information in your assessment needs paper. The next link that I had was for SAMHSA. This is a good tool for developing your prevention program, but for also finding the data that you need. You can just type in a city that you want to go to. I chose Houston for this, and then again it gives you a data source, so the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. You can pick one of these, like let's say you're looking for a specific population, maybe the LGBTQ or veterans. You can click on those PDFs to find that information, or you can just look at the whole presentation. This will again give you information on the different data that they've collected, and they kind of put it in a nice little spreadsheet for you. For those who may not live in Texas, for those specific examples, you can still use SAMHSA as a way to find the assessment needs and data in your community. I've also just typed in substance use needs assessment in a specific city. I chose Albany, New York for that. And they have their own .gov place where it provides the data that you can use. So this is the regions needs assessment. So you can just click on that, and that will bring up a PDF with all the information that you're going to need for your paper. If for some reason the community that you chose is a small city that isn't showing up in the assessment needs that you're finding for your state, then you could just type it in. I typically do something like statistics of drug use. So I chose Big Springs, Texas, as that's a smaller city. And one of the things you can find here is Data USA. So again, it's not going to list out maybe the risk and protective factors, but you can kind of provide that information. Population poverty rate. Remember, poverty is going to be a risk factor, so you can put that in there. You can look at the different education, diversity, all of those things. Then you can also just type in different statistics that you're learning. Remember, this is going to take some time to research it, so that's why I wanted to show you a few different ways that you can try to find this data. This is all set up so that you will be able to figure out what your community needs, and then in your second paper you will find out which prevention program you're going to want to implement in that community. So finding your prevention resources already in that community will also be important for assessment needs, because you need to make sure that whatever prevention program you choose in your second paper, that it's not reinventing the wheel or of something that's already provided in your community. If you have any questions, please post them in the student lounge so everyone can get a chance to see what my answer is for that question. But if you have something specific about your paper, then you can email me.